Welcome back to another video. I'm going to be doing my post week 17 power rankings, and let's begin. I'm going to be sprinkling in some news as I go along with my list. So coming in at number 32, the Jaguars continue to hold that spot. It looks like we're going to see the Jaguars get another number 1 overall pick because they're probably not going to beat the Indianapolis Colts. At number 31, the Lions just got blown out by the Seahawks. It looked like they were going to make a game out of it, make a little bit of a comeback, but then they wound up getting blown out anyway. At number 30, the Giants, who had, including sacks for losses, they had negative 10 total passing yards. Just completely disgusting and despicable for today's day and age. At number 29, the Texans. They were able to give a little bit of a fight to the Niners early on, and it didn't end up a blowout, but it wasn't really a close game towards the end. I'm hoping that they can beat the Tennessee Titans next week for my Chiefs. Get more on that in a bit. At number 28, the Jets had the Buccaneers with just 15 seconds left, and the Bucs were at the 40, and they just gave it up. At number 27, the Panthers. They lost to the Saints. Sam Donald, didn't really didn't do anything that impressive. The Panthers will be looking for a quarterback this offseason. At number 26, the Seahawks. We may have just seen Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll's last home game in Seattle. At number 25, the Bears, who were able to blow out the Giants. At number 24, the Washington football team. They just lost again to the Philadelphia Eagles. Their season's been over, I would say, since that 56-14 loss to Dallas. At number 23, the Falcons. Their offense was non-existent against the Buffalo Bills. At number 22, the Broncos, who just got blown out by the Chargers. At number 21, the Vikings, who had Sean Mannion at quarterback, and for that Sunday night football game against the Packers. More on that in a bit. At number 20, the Browns. They lost again to Pittsburgh in what most likely will be Ben Roethlisberger's final home game at Heinz Field. More on that in a bit. At number 19, the Saints. They can still get into the postseason if they beat the Falcons and if the 49ers lose to the Rams. Could happen. At number 18, the Ravens, who are suddenly not going to make the playoffs. They can still make it, but they need a lot of things to happen, including the Colts losing to the Jaguars, which I just don't see it. At number 17, the Dolphins. We were right. I was right. They went on the most irrelevant winning streak in NFL history. They won 7 straight games and did not make the playoffs. They went from 1-7 to 8-7. Just to not make it. They're clinched out. Even if they beat New England next week and 1,000 things happen, they're not going to make it. They're officially out. At number 16, the Steelers. They have still a chance to make it in. An unlikely one, but it's a chance. Ben Roethlisberger won his final game at Heinz Field. Didn't really play that well. Got carried by a defense and a running game, but, win's a win. At number 15, the Eagles, who have somehow gotten into the postseason. I'm not going to lie, this is a team that I was just flat out wrong about coming into the season. I thought this would be a 4-win team, maybe a 5 or 6-win team top, 6 wins top. I said at the best they go 6-11, and I said at the worst they could be a 3-4 win team. And they're 9-7, and if they beat Dallas, they'll be 10-7. Regardless, even if they lose, they'll be 9-8 and in the postseason. So that's pretty impressive that team has been able to do it. And they got a lot of first-round picks coming up in this year's draft, and they can really just load up on defense. And this could be a team with a good future. At number 14, the Raiders, who continue to win some big games. They beat the Browns at the Browns, then they beat the Broncos, then they now beat the Colts at the Colts. This team's starting to string together some wins. And if they beat the Chargers at home this week, they will actually be in the playoffs, unfortunately. At number 13, the 49ers. Trey Lance made another start, got his first career start against the Texans. Pretty shaky at first, but was able to pull it together a bit and put together a pretty decent game. Not not anything that jumps out at you, but he showed flashes of, his athleticism and his strong arm. This will definitely be Garoppolo's last year in San Francisco, but for their sake, hopefully he comes back by the playoffs and even as quick as this week, because they can still miss the playoffs. At number 12, the Colts, who just lost to the Raiders at home. Carson Wentz just did not play well, and they let that one slip away. But they're most likely going to be in the playoffs. I think they can still actually miss, but it's very unlikely. At number 11, the Chargers, who just got that blowout win over the Broncos, as I mentioned. If they beat the Raiders, I believe they are in. They don't need anything else to happen, so that is a big game. At number 10, the Patriots. As I said, what that team needed was a get-right game, and a get-right game it was against the Jacksonville Jaguars, defeating them 50-10, and Mac Jones put together one heck of a game. And number 9, the Bills. It's very likely these two teams may wind up playing each other in the wild card round in less than 2 weeks already. So I mean that would be a pretty interesting one, and could be they may put that one as the Monday night game in Buffalo. So that'd be a pretty insane, hyped up matchup. But right now I got the Bills ahead of the Patriots simply because they're in better positioning heading into the postseason, and they got the most recent win against them when they played. At number 8, the Bengals. They beat my Kansas City Chiefs. But listen, I'm happy for Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. I remember coming into this year, they were being doubted heavily for no apparent reason. People were saying that Joe Burrow had a noodle arm and the Bengals would be looking for a new quarterback by the end of the season, blah, 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 this and that, and that Jamar Chase is dropping the ball. They should have picked Penei Sewell. Jamar Chase is going to be a bust. I remember all that. And I remember saying at the beginning of the year that my Rookie of the Year pick was Jamar Chase. And there is a possibility that he can win it. His only real, person that's there that can take it from him is Micah Parsons from Dallas. But it's going to be close between those two. And I told you guys that Joe Burrow was going to have a good year. And I think he should get Comeback Player of the Year over Dak. I mean, some of those throws he was making, he threw 4 touchdowns. He had, I believe, almost a perfect rating in that game. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, that connection is real. At number 7, the Cowboys, who lost to the Cardinals at home. I wouldn't say it was a shocking loss, but, I think a lot of people were picking them to win, including myself. But they lost it at Jerry World, and, that's it's not a loss that's gonna hurt their playoff positioning too much, because they could have gotten the number 1 seed if they would have won. They could have still had a chance for it, but they most likely weren't gonna get it anyway. And the difference between the 2nd and 3rd seed is not that big. My thing with it is I think it's a bigger loss in the sense it's just a confidence killer. I think losing to the Cardinals at home, a team that had kind of been having some issues coming into that game, beat you at your place, and everyone was saying that you guys would win. That's gonna hurt their confidence, and then they're going to Philly next week, and I think that's a game they may lose. At number 6, the Cardinals, the team that just beat them, they still can win the NFC West. I think it's very possible. They just need to beat the Seahawks at home, which I think will happen. And then they need the hope the 49ers beat the Rams, but the 49ers seem to always have the Rams numbers, so who knows. At number 5, you got my Kansas City Chiefs, lost in that high-scoring game against the Bengals, had a 2-touchdown lead at 3 different points in the game, and wound up losing. But look, I'm not one to complain about officiating, and, it is what it is. That's part of the game. Officiating is part of the game. It's not always going to be perfect. But my goodness, the calls on L'Jarius Sneed were ridiculous. There was an illegal hands to the face where he literally didn't even put his hand on his face. He put his hand on the guy's shoulder. Then there was a play where they said he was holding, but he put his hand around his waist. But it was literally when the ball was already there. Even Tony Romo was saying that should not be a penalty. It is what it is. Like I said, I'm not going to complain about it, but there was some bad calls. And then that sequence there at the end, Zach Taylor made himself look kind of goofy in that, and I mean, you're basically just giving away downs, and they almost wound up not just scoring. The Chiefs' defense held them twice, basically, and they penalties just kept giving the Bengals another shot. I think they had I believe 6 different attempts from the 1 yard line, and yeah, eventually what they just did was they clocked it out and kicked the field goal. Chiefs could have gotten the ball back, maybe tied it with a field goal and send that thing to overtime. And then the other thing too is I don't get what you're doing on defense. Look, I'm not that discouraged by the defense's play against the Bengals because first of all, yes, on paper it looks like they played bad, but first of all, the Bengals are a high flying offense that has been rolling over the last couple of weeks, and two, um, there was a lot of drives where they held the Bengals on downs, got them to fourth down, but then penalties, and a lot of those penalties were penalties that did not make sense and shouldn't have been called, that then gave the Bengals the opportunity to continue those drives. So on top of them playing a top tier offense, when they do get stops, it felt like there was always a penalty to keep the Bengals drive going. But I will say this, Chief fans are ripping Charvarius Ward and saying a whole bunch of obscenities I see on social media about him. And all I have to say to them is, look, Charvarius Ward is what he is. He's a starting caliber corner, but he is not a star corner. You put him one-on-one against any receiver, he most likely is going to get cooked without any help over the top. So my point is, it's not Charvarius Ward's fault that, we know what we have with Charvarius Ward. I blame it more on Steve Spagnuolo because, you know your players. You need to put your players in position to succeed. So why on a 3rd and 27 are you blitzing 8 guys, dropping 3, only leaving 3 in coverage, and leaving Charvarius Ward one-on-one pressed with Jamar Chase with no help over the top on a 3rd and 27? And that's what eventually led to their loss. It's ridiculous because look, I get blitzing on long distance situations because sometimes the trick is if it's long yards, the receivers have to run these long routes to get to the first down. So if you send pressure, it gives them less time to get to those routes, and then you most likely will get another sack or a throwaway. I get that. But do like a zone blitz or blitz 5 guys or 6 even at the most. But to blitz practically the entire defense except for 3 guys and leaving Charvarius Ward one-on-one with Jamar Chase is just foolish. And look what happened. It was just foolish. And it's not only that that they got it that time. They were doing it all game. So if you see them doing it all game, why in a crucial situation like that would you leave your guy like that? And if you are going to press Jamar Chase one-on-one on 3rd and 27, which, like I've made clear, I would not do that even if I had Jalen Ramsey. But let's say you are going to do it and you're the Chiefs. Put L'Jarius Sneed on him. He's the only guy that can match his speed. I mean, I just don't get it. I really don't. But, you're going to lose games. And, but unfortunately this one really may cost them the number 1 seed. Now they have to depend on the Texans to win. So, it is what it is. At number 4, I got the Titans because they just blew out, the red hot Dolphins, and they beat the Niners the week before. They've been on a roll lately, and they're best positioned in the playoffs, which gives them an advantage, obviously. And they did beat the Chiefs 27-3, but that feels like it was 5 seasons ago. But it did happen. At number 3, the Buccaneers. They inched past the Jets. That was a weird one. But that does happen sometimes. But still, it is a little bit of cause for concern. The Bucs' offense is very inconsistent, and obviously the whole Antonio Brown thing that happened in that game. Look, I'm not gonna comment much on that. I really have no idea what's up. I've heard a whole bunch of different things about why he left and why it is. But what the facts are that he left the game, but the Bucs haven't released him yet. And here we are 2 days later. So when your head coach right after the game is saying he's no longer a Buck, but 2 days later he's still on the roster, something just doesn't seem right. So I really don't have any other comment than that right there. So, but from a football standpoint for the Buccaneers, you got Chris Godwin out for the year. Assuming Antonio Brown, quote unquote, is no longer a Buck, according to Bruce Arians, then you don't have him either. which means your only, reliable receiver for Brady is Mike Evans, who's been dealing with some injuries. And then you got Gronk at tight end, but who knows if he's going to stay healthy. So right now they're sitting with Gronk and Evans as the top two targets, which isn't bad, but it's just not used to what Brady has. Brady's used to having stars in every single spot. And to add to that, the running game has taken a huge hit without Leonard Fournette and Giovanni Bernard, and then they got some injuries on defense. So the Bucs have some problems going into the playoffs, but they've proven they can win without getting the bye week, and it is Tom Brady we're talking about. And like I said, it's not like he doesn't have any of his weapons. He still has arguably his top two weapons in Evans and Gronk. And number two, the Rams. I find it very impressive how the Rams have been able to continue to win despite Matthew Stafford sucking really bad. I said at the beginning of the season that Matthew Stafford wouldn't change the Rams at all. Even though he may be a better quarterback than Jared Goff is, he still wouldn't really change the wins and losses. And you may be saying right now, you've been proven wrong. Well, no, not necessarily, because I believe the Rams last year went 12-4. If they win this week, they'll be 13-4. If they lose, they'll be 12-5. They're pretty much going to be the same record. And let's see what they do in the playoffs. I'm not too confident with them simply because of Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford has 6 turnovers in the last 2 games. 6 turnovers in the last 2 games, and they're 2-0 despite that. And it's not like it's against bad teams. They played some decently good teams in the Vikings and the Ravens, and both were away games. So it's very impressive how their defense has been able to hold up both weeks. But yeah, I mean, Matthew Stafford just needs to clean it up a bit. And then at number 1, I got the Packers reclaiming it. They're the only team, obviously, that's clinched the number 1 seed for their conference. They're going to get the bye again. So they've pretty much guaranteed themselves, they have guaranteed, like every other year, they've guaranteed themselves a bye week, not having to travel. And they're just setting themselves up for another loss to somebody in the NFC Championship game, whether it's to Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, whether it's to the Rams, whether it's to the Cardinals or the Cowboys. We know they're going to lose. They're not going to the Super Bowl. We know that for sure. But yeah, they are in right now. So, and I find it interesting how they're going to play their starters against the Lions, and how Aaron Rodgers wants to play. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, that's it for today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and as always, I'll see you guys next time.